All right, guys. So dates and times are important in programming, and JavaScript has a date object that represents a point in time and lets you do some basic operations on it. So basically, we can instantiate a new date object with the new keyword. So I'm just going to create a variable here, just so I don't have to keep creating new ones. We'll just use this D variable, and let's set D to a new date. Now, if I do this and I console log D, you'll see down here we get Friday, October 28th, 2022. It has the time. It gives me the time zone. Now, this, if we look at the type of this, so if we say type of D, we get object. So the date is an object. Basically, anything that's not a primitive type is going to be an object. Now you can turn this to a string, so I'll say d.toString. If I do that, then that's going to be a string. All right, now if we want to set a specific date, what we could do is say new date, and then in here we can pass in a value. So let's say we want to do we'll do 2021, and let's say 6/10. And if I save that, you're going to see it's Saturday, July 10th. Now, this might be confusing because we use 6 here, but yet we're getting July, which is the 7th month. So the caveat is that the month is 0-based or 0 index. So if I put a 1 here, then we're going to get February. If I put a 0 here, then we're going to get January. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, if you want to add a time, we could keep adding on to this. Let's say we want 12, so that'll be the hour, and then we have, and you can see right here, we have the hour, and then we can do minutes, seconds. So let's say 12 for the hour, we'll do 30 for the minutes, and 0 for the seconds. If I save that, you can see now we get 12:30. Now, instead of passing in arguments like that, you can also pass in a string. So, or many different types of strings, or I should say formatted in many different ways. So if I do a string, so quotes here, 2021, let's say -07, and let's say 10. If I save that, then we're going to get July. Okay, so this is going to be correct. So 7 is July. If we do it like this and we pass in the separate arguments, then the month is going to be 0-based. And if I wanted to add the time, there's a few ways I could do it. I could do T and then let's say 12:30:00. If I do that, now you'll see the time is 12:30. I could also do it this way. So let's clear this up, and I could do let's say 07/10/2021, and then I could do a space 12:30 like that, and we get the same thing. Now, there is a known issue if you use hyphens and you use the year first, then it could be off by a day due to the time zone. So if I do, let's say, do a string of 2022, and let's use hyphens, so say 07 and 10, and then save that, you'll see it actually says July 9th, even though I said July 10th. So keep that in mind. If you do the year first and hyphen, it might be off by a day if your time zone is not set. If you put the month first, it should work. So if I were to do like 7/10/22, which is, in the US is how we format dates, then that does say July 10th. And I'm going to put a link here to a Stack Overflow that kind of explains why this happens. So the next thing I want to look at are timestamps. So the Unix timestamp is a system for describing a point in time, and what it is, it's an integer that represents the number of seconds that's elapsed, that's passed since the date of January 1st, 1970, which is an arbitrary date. So that timestamp is expressed in milliseconds. So, or I should say the timestamp in JavaScript is expressed in milliseconds. Now you can always get the timestamp by using, let's say D, so by using date.now, like that. So if I save that, we're going to get the milliseconds that have passed. If I reload, you'll see it'll just keep updating. right? So that gives you a way to always be able to mark an exact, millisecond in time. And we use timestamps for different things, and we'll probably use them throughout the course. Now, to get a timestamp of a specific date, you can use the getTime function or method, or you could use value of. So, for instance, let's say D equals, and we'll create a new date. Let's just say we'll do the same thing, 7, we'll do 10 in 2022. Okay, and then I'm going to get the timestamp by saying D dot get time. Actually, I want to log that. So let's how should I do this? Let's set that to D so we can see that logged. All right, so this is the exact timestamp for this date. Now I didn't put a time in here, so we might want to do that. So we could do like let's say 12:30:00. Okay, so it's always going to be that exact timestamp. And then again, you can also use value of. So if I say D equals D dot value of and save, I get the same thing. If I want to get the exact timestamp for right now, this date and time, I could just clear that up and save. And obviously that's going to keep changing, okay, as time moves. So you can also create date objects from a timestamp. So let me just grab this right here, which was a couple seconds ago. And then I'm just going to say D equals new date. And just like we can put in arguments or we can put in strings, we can also put in a timestamp. And then let's save that, and you'll see it's October 28th, and it's going to be 9 o'clock 49 seconds. That's what this timestamp represents. Right now it's 9:01. Okay, so that was about a minute ago. So let's see, the JavaScript timestamp is expressed in milliseconds. If you want to convert it to seconds, then what you could do is, and just ignore the D equals for all these. The only reason I'm setting it to the D is just so we can log it and see what these actually give us. But we could just do math.floor, and then we'll take the date.now, which will give us the timestamp of right now, and then simply divide it by 1,000, because there's 1,000 milliseconds in a second. We save that, and that's the timestamp in seconds. Okay, just remember in JavaScript by default the timestamps are milliseconds. So in the next video, I just want to look at some of the different methods that we can use on date objects. And we already looked at the get time and value of, but there's a bunch of others as well that we're going to look at.